Will full coverage make me look cakey? Is my undertone neutral or is it cool? We get it. Finding the right foundation is hard. But with Il Maquillage, it's easy to find your perfect match online, customized for your unique skin tone and coverage needs. Plus, with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. With over 600,000 five-star reviews, this best-selling foundation is going viral for a reason. Take the Power Match quiz now at ilmaquillage.com/quiz. ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Ciara Revan, and this is the Sunday 7.
To say hello to 2025, we're looking back at some of our favourite stories of the last year from July to December. On today's Sunday 7, we talk about the evolution of home testing kits for all kinds of health conditions, and Guyatt, our tech guru, will explain some of the social media chaos we've seen over the past year. Astonishingly, we had brand new Neolithic news, and we remember the month space travel stories dominated the news, both for very different reasons. We're here 7 days a week with the 7 biggest stories every morning at 7 a.m. on the Smart 7. If you're enjoying the episode, please do like and share, and maybe even leave us a review. When the UK's first COVID inquiry report was released back in July, it painted a pretty damning picture of a government and a healthcare system that just wasn't prepared for the pandemic. But it seems so remarkable now that we can buy COVID tests from the shops and have pretty much become pros at preparing and processing our samples. It's a major change in terms of how society will be able to respond to major health events and help take pressure off hospitals, acting as a filtering mechanism. So it's not surprising that we've been seeing a new wave of home testing for a range of different health conditions. One of the first we saw was back in July too, when King's College trialled a convenient way to do smear tests across 5 London boroughs. They were able to detect HPV, which causes cervical cancer, in the privacy of their own home. Dr. Aziza Sesay is the Vice Chair of Black Female Doctors UK and an Honorary Senior Clinical Lecturer. She was on BBC Breakfast explaining how the home kit will work.
The great thing about this HPV self-sampling is that you can do it yourself. Basically, it looks like a swab, cotton wool swab, or the long COVID swab. And what you do is, as an individual, it has instructions. We talk the patients through how to use it. You use the long swab. You only need to put your finger about halfway through. There's usually a demarcation, and then you can stand with your legs propped up on the chair or on the toilet if you're there, or you can be seated. Pop it into the vagina in a similar manner. Okay. It probably gets about halfway. So once you feel the swab on your skin, onto your vulval skin, then you're in. Turn it around for 20 seconds, take it out, pop it into the sample pot, and then send it off.
And that's not the only one of these tests out there, with a HPV test based on a menstrual blood sample also available. Andrew Parfery is the Programme Manager for the Venture Builder Incubator at the University of Edinburgh, and he explains how it works.
This company called PapCup came on the Venture Builder Incubator. It's founded by someone called Sanziana Fwa, and she's developed a non-invasive cervical cancer screening product which can be used at home. What it effectively does is enable you to take a swab sample of menstrual blood and have it analysed in the device that she's developed, and within 15 minutes it will therefore give you the results of that test. So gone now, hopefully, will be the days of having to go somewhere, have an invasive procedure, and indeed have to wait weeks for the results.
The home testing doesn't stop there. There's also an online test for ADHD, a condition which can take a long time to be diagnosed, with waiting lists often extending for years. The NHS has been testing an online tool for diagnosing ADHD much quicker, especially with children. The test involves a camera that tracks movement as well as response time, and Jess, Brunet, who is part of the clinical team for the QbTest, says that means there's less subjective decisions involved in the diagnosis.
It means that it's not influenced by what a teacher thinks, what a parent thinks. It's that child's levels of activity, how easy or hard it is for them to pay attention, and how impulsive they are. And Shelford is from the ADHD UK, and he says the fact that the QbTest will shortly roll out across the NHS will make a huge difference.
This is the start of something game-changing, in that it's the start of people looking at how can we give the NHS the tools to make ADHD assessments more effective, more efficient, so that we can diagnose those people who are waiting, and it is hundreds of thousands.
Before we fully welcome 2025 in, we wanted to run down some of the social media chaos we've seen over the past year. Here to chat about government interventions, new platforms, and how even after all this time, we still can't stop saying formerly known as Twitter. It's Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's tech guru. Will, 2024 was a wild ride on social media. What moments really stand out to you?
It's actually hard to recall because there's now literally a big social media moment every day. We've been able to get closer to many of the world's biggest stories thanks to social media. Posts from Ukraine, Syria, Israel and Palestine have given us a really clear look into the unfolding situations. But at the same time, misinformation and false posts are at an all-time high, which means you literally cannot believe anything you see. Outside of that, it's been another big year for musicians. I think I've seen pretty much every angle of the never-ending Taylor Swift tour, and there was a glorious moment for men of a certain age when the country went mad for the reforming of Oasis. I'm going to do my best to ignore the fact that riots in the UK were largely set off by misinformation on social media, but in 2024 I've gone big for chiropractic adjustments and a random pawnbrokers in Cornwall that sells gold and watches and then buys fresh designer gear from customers. There's literally something for everybody on social media.
Australia's government got serious about regulating platforms this year. What were these kind of restrictions actually going to change?
Australia is the first country in the world to push forward with an absolute ban on social media for under 16s. In less than a year from now, social networks will receive huge fines if lawmakers felt that kids have not been sufficiently stopped from accessing Snapchat, TikTok and others. The biggest challenge at the moment is that accurate age verification software simply doesn't exist, so it's actually anybody's guess to ensure how this is going to come into force. But regardless of the fact that nobody really knows how to police this yet, all eyes will be on Australia to see whether this ban has any impact and makes any changes.
AI certainly had an impact on what we see online lately. Has it made social media better, or has it just blurred even more lines?
The lines are now really blurred when it comes to content. Now, we didn't have any standout moments this year like when the Vatican had to deny that the Pope was wearing Balenciaga, but there's more AI content being pumped onto social media than ever before, particularly if you're active over on the business network LinkedIn, where everyone from the local milkman through to your friendly local crypto evangelists are filling your timeline with motivational dross. I'm hoping that in 2025 AI will start pulling its weight when it comes to moderating platforms and protecting users. A whole lot of stuff can be done without human beings. The platforms just need to implement it.
Blue Sky was this year's new shiny social media toy. Do you think it's here to stay, or is it just another fad?
Blue Sky had existed under the radar before 2024. It had a small but loyal audience. Droves of folk leaving X after the US election when they ran out of patience with Elon Musk has seen the platform grow to an audience of over 30 million users in just weeks. So far, people appear to be staying and regularly posting on Blue Sky, unlike the same Gold Rush style push into threads when that launched. I think Blue Sky is here to stay, but just how quickly and how much it grows largely depends on just how much of a monstrous arse Elon Musk is being over on X. If he continues to encourage misinformation and engagement farming in such levels, more and more people will leave. Elon
Musk seemed to be everywhere, especially on his own platform X. What were some of the reasons he was trending this year?
Elon Musk is trending because he's the ultimate carnival showman. He's expressed a view on everything from civil unrest in the UK to arguably helping Donald Trump get back into power in the United States. I've spent an inordinate amount of time following Musk's behaviour on the platform, and from what I can see, he's doing this entirely for his own kicks. He spent millions on buying X, and it's like the ultimate toy. If there was one good Musk moment this year on X, it was when he revealed the first Neuralink patient, a paralysed man who had received the first working brain implant that allowed him to play video games with his mates. Let's ignore the rest of Musk's guff.
Now 2025 is here. What are the potential shake-ups in social media you're keeping an eye on?
We could see a huge shake-up, and in less than 4 weeks, TikTok will be banned in the US unless the owners ByteDance sell it to an American company. It doesn't look like this sale will happen, but unless new President Trump steps in, 170 million Americans will soon be unable to access TikTok. And with Google fighting a battle with the US government over its dominance in the online advertising space, one has to wonder whether similar charges will be levelled at Meta thanks to its strength in messaging across Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp. And if I'm gazing into my crystal ball, I reckon Threads might get folded back into Instagram, and Donald Trump's Truth.social, which you don't use but still counts as a social network, will get purchased for way more than it's worth by Elon Musk.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, a Nobel Prize winner is in for a surprise, and we look at the impact of global warming over the last 12 months. We found out something new about Stonehenge, one of the world's most famous Neolithic sites this year. There's always been a number of questions about the stones that make up the monument that dates back over 5,000 years. The outer stones are believed to originate from the southwest of England, while the so-called blue stones originate from Wales. But for a number of years, there have been questions in academic circles about the central altar stone. And it turned out it's not Welsh at all, but instead appears to have originated in Scotland. Anthony Clarke is a researcher at Curtin University in Australia and explained to the BBC how he figured out the mystery by analysing the rock. He discovered they could only come from the far north of Scotland and is hoping his Welsh compatriots can forgive him.
I'm not sure they'll ever talk to me again. It's a loss for Wales, no doubt, but Wales has contributed so many rocks to this monument. I'm sure Scotland can have one.
The altar stone weighs more than 6 tonnes and it would have to have been transported over 450 miles from its site of origin near the Orkney Islands. Professor Chris Kirkland of Curtin University says he doesn't know how it was done, but that it hints at a level of previously undiscovered cooperation and organisation.
That is the question. How did these people transport a 6-tonne object? Could it have come over land or via sea? There's still so much more research that can be done. It gives us really a window back into time to understand how early societies developed and what they loved and held dear.
2024 was a dramatic year in space exploration, with Boeing's Starliner struggling to launch and leaving astronauts stranded in orbit, while SpaceX's Polaris Dawn soared to record-breaking heights. The Starliner crewed mission was officially a test flight, but it ran into trouble when 5 of the thrusters failed as the ship tried to dock automatically. During a NASA conference call, Kenneth Bowersox, a former astronaut and NASA's Associate Administrator for Space Operations, laid out the issues.
We know that at some point we need to bring Butch and Sonny home. While they're up there, we have extra crews, we have extra hands. They can do a lot more work, but they're also using up more consumables, more supplies. So we have to maintain that balance, and at some point we need to bring those folks home and get back to a normal crew size on the ISS.
In early September, the Starliner returned unmanned, leaving the astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams stuck in space until next February, meaning the work trip, which was originally meant to be 8 days, will now take 8 months. At another NASA press conference, the team were relieved that the Starliner had landed safely, but there was no Boeing representative in sight. Steve Sitch, the manager of the commercial crew program at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, was still standing over the decision to return without Butch and Sonny.
Yeah, I think it's always hard to have that retrospective look. You know, we made the decision to have an uncrewed flight based on what we knew at the time. If we'd have had a model that would have predicted what we saw tonight perfectly, yeah, it looks like an easy decision to go say we could have had a crewed flight, but we didn't have that. So I think we made the right decision to not have Butch and Sonny on board. You know, it was a test flight, and we didn't have confidence with the certainty of the thruster performance, and that's really what led us to choose to have the uncrewed test flight.
It was hugely embarrassing for Boeing and for NASA, especially because during the same week, a historic commercial space mission happened. Polaris Dawn had an ambitious program of activity, and its 4-person Dragon X craft began by breaking a record for the highest orbit ever achieved by a private space mission.
Dragon, you've soared to over 1,400 kilometers, and you're farther from Earth than any other person since the last Apollo mission over 50 years ago.
Copy that, SpaceX. We all look forward to our friends at the Artemis program to take us to even greater heights.
The project was a joint venture between Jared Isaacman, a billionaire who owns payment processing company Shift4, and Elon Musk's SpaceX. Isaacman was on board the Polaris Dawn and was the first through the hatch in a new slimline SpaceX spacesuit. The craft doesn't have a traditional airlock, unlike most designs. Instead, the whole vessel is depressurized before the hatch is opened. CBS News senior correspondent Mark Mark Strassman says it was a huge step forward for SpaceX and in particular their new spacesuit.
This is a real milestone, the first time a company and not a country has tried a spacewalk. SpaceX's long-term goal is to colonize the moon and Mars, and for that, it says it'll need thousands of these spacesuits, so this morning's spacewalk is the first step in developing that capability. The Polaris Dawn mission, if all things go well, scheduled to splash down this weekend.
Still to come, the Sunday 7 weight loss jabs have never been more popular, but are we learning there's a reason for warnings?
Right after this.
Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Welcome back.
The 2024 Nobel Prizes were announced back in October and later celebrated in Stockholm with a grand ceremony last month. To honour achievements in science, literature and peace, each winner received a gold medal, a diploma and 11 million Swedish crowns, which comes in at around £800,000. The Medicine Prize went jointly to Victor Ambros and Gary Ruvkun for their groundbreaking discovery of microRNA, crucial molecules regulating human genes. Their work led to the discovery that the human genome codes for over 1,000 microRNAs. Gary Ruvkun is a molecular biologist and a professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School in Boston. He was surprised to be recognised.
As the field exploded, which was just a joy to watch, then there was a sense that this is the sort of sea change that gets awards and things. But that took a long time and was an unbelievable pleasure to participate in. The talent that got attracted to the field was magnificent. And, the meetings with, 200 or 300 people were electrifying and still are great.
In physics, Geoffrey Hinton and John Hopfield were recognised for pioneering advances in machine learning, laying the foundation for today's AI revolution. Hinton's a professor emeritus at the University of Toronto and is referred to as the godfather of AI. He reiterated his warnings about its unregulated potential.
So I think it's rather different from climate change. With climate change, everybody knows what needs to be done. We need to stop burning carbon. Here we're dealing with something where we have much less idea of what's going to happen and what to do about it. And so I wish I had a sort of simple recipe that if you do this, everything's going to be okay, but I don't. In particular, with respect to the existential threat of these things getting out of control and taking over, I think we're at a kind of bifurcation point in history where in the next few years, we need to figure out if there's a way to deal with that threat. So I think it's very important right now for people to be working on the issue of how would we keep control. We need to put a lot of research effort into it. I think one thing governments can do is force the big companies to spend a lot more of their resources on safety research.
The Chemistry Prize honoured David Baker, who used amino acids to create completely new types of proteins, which have gone on to be used in vaccines, nanomaterials and even tiny sensors. The prize was also presented to Dr. Demis Hassabis and Dr. John Jumper for their work on protein structures. The senior computer scientists at Google's DeepMind built an artificial intelligence model that was able to correctly predict the structure of almost 200 million proteins. When it came to the award announcement, Dr. Demis Hassabis said they almost missed out.
Actually, strangely, I don't think the committee had our phone numbers, so we got a random call through my wife's laptop on some kind of Teams page, and I think she was sort of ignoring it because she was working. And then eventually, about the third or fourth call, she decided to answer it, and then it was a call from Sweden saying, "Can we get a hold of me?" And then I needed to give them John's number, so it was quite a funny sequence actually.
Spain saw the deadliest floods in their history from late October into November. Torrential floods swept through regions like Madrid and Valencia, claiming 231 lives and leaving communities grappling with destruction. Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez announced a 3-day national mourning period after the floods.
Spain weeps with all of you. Our absolute priority is to help you. Our public authorities are working in a coordinated fashion to make that possible, and we are going to do everything possible today and however long is necessary so that we can recover from this tragedy. We will not leave you alone.
Rain meters in Chiva and Valencia, which was at the centre of the flooding, detected over 400 litres per square metre in just over 8 hours, which is over a year's worth of rain. We had our second warmest November globally, which confirmed that 2024 was the warmest year on record very early. Seth Borenstein from Associated Press says more extreme weather events are part of a global pattern which is affecting the jet stream.
One of the latest theories with climate change is that the jet stream at times gets wavier and stuck more often because of climate change, specifically because the Arctic is warming faster than other parts of the world. The air holds more moisture when it's warmer. As a matter of fact, for every degree Celsius, it's 7% more moisture. It has warmed 1.3 degrees Celsius more than it was in pre-industrial times. That's 9% more rain in the air.
Oksana Tarasova is a senior scientific officer at the UN's World Meteorological Organization, and she says that atmospheric CO2 is being measured at record levels as fossil fuel emissions remain in the atmosphere.
Actually, we have not seen these levels of CO2 in the history of humanity. The problem with CO2 is that it is a very long-lived greenhouse gas. So it stays in the atmosphere for thousands of years.
Weight loss drugs have gained an awful lot of attention over the past year and have regularly made the headlines. Semaglutide is an injectable medication sold under brand names like Ozempic or Wegovy and was originally devised to help tackle diabetes. It's been shown to have loads of other positive effects too. But last month, a report highlighted that the drug could be dangerous also. ITV News reported that at least 18 deaths had been associated with the drugs over the last 4 years in the UK, and a drug regulator had been notified. The demand for the injections has led to people accessing black market versions, which may not be what they appear to be. Dr. Vicky Price of the Society of Acute Medicine spoke about the risks of buying these treatments online.
Every shift I did, I would see at least one patient with something related to this. Most of the patients that I've seen have been people that have got it from an online source, so they've gone to an online pharmacy. But I've also treated somebody who was telling me how they got it from somebody in a plastic bag in a car park.
The ITV News team tested some of the drugs available online and were alarmed by the results. Dr. Stephen Childs of the University of Sunderland explains.
Anyone who's producing these in a DIY environment is trying to maximise profits and cut costs. So I'd be very surprised if they were taking the due diligence to perform all of the necessary tests that are required. Especially with injectables, you are breaching your body's defences. So by injecting the material straight into your body, you run the risk of introducing pathogens that could cause anything from mild irritation, inflammation, up to toxic effects, fever and beyond.
Dr. Kath McCullough of the Royal College of Physicians says that even with properly prescribed versions of the drugs, patients do need to be aware that almost all medicines carry a risk of side effects.
These are prescribed medications, and as such there are known and recognised side effects, particularly things like nausea, vomiting, particularly gastric types of side effects, and then more rarer complications such as things like pancreatitis are rare, thankfully. In the grand scheme of things, the number of people that are hospitalised is unusual and rare, and it's important to take that into account.
There have also been calls for a more coherent government strategy on obesity after a study suggested that things like adding calories to menus may not be effective. Karen Betts of the Food and Drink Federation says that the focus needs to be on processed foods in supermarkets as much as restaurants and takeaways.
About 25% of our calories come from takeaways and restaurants these days, and I would say that there isn't a level playing field between the regulation applied to packaged food and the regulation applied in out of home. It would be up to the government whether or not it wants to look at that that. On ultra-processed food, there is no scientific consensus on what ultra-processed food is and whether or not it's a cause for concern. We need, as the House of Lords report said, much more detailed research on whether or not there is something going on there that we need to know about.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
If I can describe St. George's University in one word, I would say opportunity. I always dreamed of being a doctor. St. George's gave me the opportunity to fulfill that dream.
One word to describe SGU would be opportunity.
It gives me an opportunity to work towards a career that I know I'll be happy in.
This journey and this experience has been something that has been life-changing, life-altering.
It's just something I absolutely am grateful for.
Learn more at sgu.edu/explore.